Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I am super excited today because I say that at the beginning of every video. I'm always excited to talk to y'all about books, but I'm super excited because I think I may or may not have found a new favorite slash bingeable author of mine, and I'm really excited to see how fast I can get through her entire backlist. It's gonna be great. I'm very excited about it. Obviously, I've only said excited 4 times now in the last 45 seconds, but I'm here today to do a book review of the first book that I read by Freida McFadden, which is Ward D. I decided to pick this book up not exactly on a whim, but kind of. I have a friend at work who loves to read as well, and we talk about books. She loves thrillers just like I do, and she has recommended this author to me several times, and I haven't read her yet. I know she's super popular for her book, The Housemaid. I think that is the book that kind of made her blow up on TikTok, and I finally decided to take the plunge and dive in and try a book of hers. I didn't go with her most popular book, obviously The Housemaid, because this is a book review for Ward D. But this book was the one that intrigued me the most. It is on Kindle Unlimited, and I binged it last weekend in less than 24 hours, and definitely will be reading more from her now. I'm currently reading The Inmates, and I'm enjoying it. Not sure if I'll love it as much as Ward D, just because I think I know some of the plot twists already, but I might just be thinking too obviously. So we'll see how the rest of that one goes, but today's a book review for Ward D, my first book by Freida McFadden, and I'm gonna talk to y'all about this book for a couple of minutes. If you are new to my channel or haven't seen my review videos before, this is only my 4th one for 2024. I've got a little outline that I've been following in my review videos. I'm trying to be more consistent about posting reviews both on Bookstagram as well as video book reviews. I have done a couple of these pre-2024, but sometimes it's hard for me to like just sit down and talk about the same book in a coherent format as I try to do for my written book reviews, if that makes sense. But we're trying it out. I did create this outline, and so far it's been fine. So we're gonna go ahead and keep using it for now. I also just got back from the gym like 15 minutes ago and was like, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and film this right now. That way I can get it edited for an upload next week. But let me pull up the book really quickly on my Goodreads, because I'm already kind of forgetting some things that I probably will mention. Like I said before, this is a book review of Ward D by Freida McFadden. This is a thriller, mystery. Yeah, it's a thriller. This book is, yeah, a thriller for sure. I don't know why I'm questioning myself. And it was published in 2023. I'm not sure if it's the author's newest release, not including her book that came out 3 days ago when I'm filming this video. I am not super familiar with the order of her books, but Ward D is less than a year old. Already has over 100,000 reviews and ratings on Goodreads. I'm guessing a part of this has played into the fact that The Housemaid is super popular and people want to read more of her books, but it's not underrated by any means. However, I had not seen or heard of this book before, except for the fact that my friend told me about it. So I got it on Kindle Unlimited. I think all of her books are on KU. My other book that I'm reading by her currently is also on Kindle Unlimited. To give a synopsis of this thriller, it is about a medical student whose name is Amy, I believe, and she is on rotation at the psychiatric ward at this hospital where she has been a medical student for the past 2 years. She is on the overnight rotation with her ex-boyfriend, who wasn't originally on the rotation but somehow got put onto it, and she's not happy about it. She's already nervous because it's an overnight shift. Things feel a little bit eerie. Her best friend from childhood has been known to be in and out of the psychiatric ward over the years. She doesn't love the vibe of the place naturally. She's on a 12-hour shift, again it's overnights, and things are supposed to be pretty calm in the psychiatric hospital. There is one patient who is considered dangerous to himself and others, and he is locked away in an isolation room. and is getting ready to be transported to another facility in the morning. So all is supposed to be quiet. This patient who is in this isolation room is not quiet. Amy hears him banging on the door, screaming, convinced that he potentially has escaped at some point in the night, and she is trying not to freak out. She's trying to make it through the night in this otherwise quiet but kind of uncomfortable psychiatric ward where the patients are happy and calm and she talks to them, but they continually give her warnings about this man who is in the isolation room and is coming after all of them to kill them tonight. So she's feeling uncomfortable. Her ex-boyfriend is there until he's not. The doctor and the nurse, who are the professionals, I guess, on this ward, are little to no help at all. And Amy is trying to get to the bottom of things. She doesn't want to be there, but she also can't leave. She's unable to physically leave the ward, and she's determined kind of to figure out what the heck is going on and why suddenly in the middle of the night isolation room number 1 goes so quiet. Also turns out that her best friend from childhood is in the psychiatric hospital as well, and there is bad blood between them. So we do have a dual timeline between the past and the present with Amy and her childhood, as well as her present time as a medical student at this hospital. Content warnings for this book do include blood, death of parents, as well as mental illness, schizophrenia, psychosis, and murder. I gave this book 5 stars. Is it the best book I've ever read? The writing, not so much. However, it was completely bingeable. It kept me completely captivated and engaged throughout the entirety of it, and I did not want to put it down. And I feel as though just the overall vibes and the fun elements of this book are what primarily led me to give it 5 stars rather than my most common rating of 4 stars. I always talk about the plot first in my reviews, and I do feel as though this is a very heavy plot book. I think that when it comes to the characters, which I'll kind of talk about in a minute, there are some holes in relation to them, but I could overlook them because the plot was just super fun. I do love a good dual timeline, and I feel as though Freida McFadden does a really good job at building up suspense in the present day chapter and then jumping back to the past. So we have to wait to get back into the present of where Amy currently is in the psychiatric hospital where things aren't right. And I think that that's a really, what's the word, marketable tactic to keep people engaged and wanting to know what's going on, because you are jumping back and forth so much that you leave readers hanging in the present. But then you're also building up this story in the past that is also interesting. But to get to the next present chapter, you kind of have to read the past to be able to continue making connections between Amy and her best friend and how she ended up here and what is going on in the psychiatric ward and why all these patients are telling Amy that a murder is going to happen tonight, or really that they're all going to be murdered. So I do think that Freida does a really great job. I acknowledge her like I know her, and I don't. I do think that the author does a really good job at building suspense in the plot, and that is namely done through the dual timeline and the back and forth. So I have to applaud her for that. There was never a moment in this book where I wanted to put it down or was ready to like set it aside for a little bit to get other things done. I was consistently itching to keep going because the plot was just so interesting. And I didn't really know what to expect in the end in terms of what would happen. And she really did throw some great plot twists in there that got me really good, I must say. In terms of the characters, like I mentioned a little bit ago, there are some holes that I feel could be filled, especially regarding the ex-boyfriend and why he was put on this overnight shift in the first place when I know that he wasn't originally on it, and he shows up for the shift and we don't really get an explanation as to why, unless I have forgotten already or just jumped over it, but I don't think I did. So I would have loved some more information on that, just because it is kind of weird how her ex in this medical school class of I think 100-ish students is the one who ends up on the shift with her when he wasn't exactly supposed to be. I'll put that in a spoiler bar, but that is one of like the big plot holes or character holes, I guess, that I had. But When it comes to thrillers, I don't really care about if a character is likable or unlikable. Likable people are great, sure, but they don't always make for interesting thrillers in my opinion. However, I do think that Amy was a great main character. She was very likable overall. Was she perfect? Definitely not. But I do feel as though she leans more likable than unlikable. I must say I do like a good unlikable character in my thrillers, but we do have this aspect of unreliability throughout the book when it comes to Amy, and I do think the author does a very interesting job at building that unreliability in a very slow way that, to me at least, was unnoticeable until the very end and the epilogue hit, and I was like, whoa, she really just went there. And I was kind of obsessed. We only follow Amy's perspective, but again, we follow her in the past and the present, so we do kind of see how she has grown and changed and shifted over the years. I didn't hate her. She wasn't my favorite character in a thriller by any means. I do feel as though the writing kind of stilted some of the connection that I could have made with her. I'll talk about that in a second though, but I did like her overall, and the other characters did a really great job playing their parts to drive the plot. I think the author did a really great job at building a very interesting cast of characters who build and play off each other, but are also distinctly different from each other, in my opinion at least. I do feel as though all the different patients had their own traits. I liked them. I was interested to know more about them and see them throughout the book, so I do like that aspect of the characters. In terms of my overall thoughts, I did want to mention that the writing style does feel a little bit awkward and stilted and just kind of off at times. I don't know why I felt that way, but I didn't feel as though, I don't know how to describe it, but I do kind of feel as though there was always a little bit of distance as I was reading the book, because even though I was engaged, I was constantly noticing how I didn't quite vibe with the writing. It did feel a little bit basic, and that is super nitpicky because I am of course an English graduate student and all I do is read and write in this season of my life, so I do kind of notice those things or have personal aesthetic opinions when it comes to books, but I was able to get past it. It didn't bother me enough to super affect my enjoyment of this book in the end. I mean, I ended up giving it 5 stars, so gotta love that. But I wasn't a huge fan of the writing, and I do notice that in the other book that I'm reading by her as well, so I'll be curious to see if all of her books are like that, and if it's just like a me thing, or if it was just the way that these specific books are written. I don't know. But they are very engaging, they are very captivating. I do feel as though they are very accessible thrillers. I understood what was going on even though this book took place in a hospital. I wasn't confused by any medical jargon or things like that. I do feel as though I was able to access everything that was being said in this book. So I do have to appreciate that as somebody who knows nothing about medical stuff. Overall, I really enjoyed my book. For my first Freida McFadden book, I really was not let down by any means. I do plan to binge her books this year. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I am currently reading my second book by her, The Inmates, and am loving it so far. I'm just about 50% of the way through it and cannot wait to see what ends up happening with this one. I do think, and I don't think that I'm the only one who believes this, that she is a super bingeable author. So if you're looking for a quick thriller that you probably won't be able to put down, I would recommend Ward D by Freida McFadden. I keep calling it Ward 9 in my head. I don't know why. When I wrote on my schedule this week to film my review video for this book, I wrote Ward 9 originally, and I don't know why. Anyway, yes, that's this book. I absolutely loved it. It's my second 5-star read of this year that wasn't a reread for me, and I've read 22 books, so if that says anything about how much I loved it, there it is. But that is all that I have for this review video. If you've read this book, feel free to comment down below and share your thoughts on them, or if you've read from this author before, feel free to give me your recommendations for which one I should pick up after finishing The Inmates. But that's all that I have for this book review video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.